Let's go in depth about all the ways that you can manipulate the mission area. Some simulations can get involved very quickly, so making your way around the battlespace is essential. I've opened up MACE in Blue Marble. Assuming you have loaded all your chart and elevation data already, let's start zooming and scaling. To get the most used commands, right-click on an open area and navigate to the Map menu. First you'll see the Center Here command. It's grayed out right now since we're centered on the whole planet already, so I'll skip down to the Zoomed In command for a second. You'll see where I clicked on Zoom In, and it zoomed right where I right-clicked. Now I'll right-click on the right side of the mission area and Center Here. You'll see that the map is recentered on that spot. Moving on to the Center On command, let me load up a mission and start running it. I'll click on this aircraft and make it the currently selected platform. Then I'll right-click on an open area and select Center On Current Aircraft. You'll see that the map constantly updates to keep the center of the chart on that aircraft. It will work for ground vehicles as well, should you be zoomed in far enough to watch ground vehicles' movement. Center On Mission Area will zoom and/or scale as necessary to ensure all the entities in your mission are visible within the mission area. As entities move around, MACE will keep calculating what map extents to draw to ensure the visible area contains all the entities. The Zoom to Mission Area menu item is similar, except that it's a one-time command and will not continuously ensure that the visible area contains all the entities in your mission. Either of these options are a good way to double-check your coordinates. If you choose this, and it zooms all the way out to full Earth, or to an area much larger than you anticipated, chances are you have a stray entity or a waypoint that you should bring closer into your mission. Now let's discuss the differences between zoom and scale. Zooming in means a closer look at the chart that you currently have on MACE. Scaling in, on the other hand, means changing the chart to a larger or smaller scale with more or less detail. By default, MACE already matches it with a zoom to keep it readable, but we'll talk more about that later. If you want to zoom to either the mission area or go back to Blue Marble, you can do this here. If you want to scale to a specific chart, you can do that manually by choosing it under the Select Scale submenu. Under Map Cursor, you can choose either the Select tool, the Zoom tool, or the Pan tool. I'll talk more about these when we get to the mission tools. Under Data Source, you can toggle on or off the source of charts and imagery. For instance, if you have a scenario in Afghanistan and want to disregard all the high-res imagery and stick to the charts, toggling it off will do that. Lastly, let's talk about the Options submenu. There are a lot of commands here, and they're already set here how you would use them by default. Toggling off Automatically Scale on Zoom will mean that as you zoom in, the chart will not change scales to match. Be cautious when using this unchecked. If you want to zoom into an area too far, the mission area will be pixelated and pretty hard to use. If you deselect Automatically Start Panning when dragging the mouse, that'll force you to use the Pan tool to pan around the chart, if that's your choice. These Release and Validate commands here are for advanced users. If you have a system beyond the recommended specs, you shouldn't have to touch these. The next commands select what the mouse wheel does and whether or not to invert the action. Finally, there is a command that will bring you directly to the Settings menu where you can manage chart and imagery. Now let's move on to the mission tools. Click on the Mission Controls toolbar and find Mission Tools. They are the Select tool, the Zoom tool, the Pan tool, the Range and Bearing tool, the Line of Sight tool, and the Check Line of Sight tool. The Select tool is the default cursor. It's used for selecting entities, and you can pan around the map by holding down the left mouse button in an open area of the mission area. The Zoom tool will zoom the mission area to the size of the window you draw. Draw a window by holding down the left mouse button and dragging down and right. Release the mouse button once you get to the size you want, and the mission area will zoom to that window. If you want to zoom out, you can draw a window from right to left, and the mission area will zoom out according to how big of a window you draw. A little window will zoom out a lot, and a large window will zoom out very little. The Pan tool will pan around the map if you hold down the left mouse button. This is how you would pan around the map if you had the automatically start panning when dragging the mouse option under the map options unchecked. The Range and Bearing tool measures just that, a range and bearing from a given point. Click once on the point you want to measure from and mouse out to the destination. Click again to release that measurement. While you still have the Range and Bearing tool selected, you can click again to make another measurement. To clear these out, go back to the Selection tool and right-click on the red line. You'll get a prompt asking if you are sure you want to delete the Range and Bearing line. The Line of Sight tool checks whether a site can see a point in space. To use this tool, first click on a site that you want to reference. Then click on the Line of Sight tool icon. I'll talk about its drop-down menu in a second. When you click on the Line of Sight tool, you will see a line extended from the selected site. Extend that line out to a point where you want to measure. That's just one part of the equation. You need to also choose the elevation at that point. Scroll the mouse wheel up and down to dial in that altitude. The drop-down menu on the right-hand side of the Line of Sight tool will choose how many feet will advance every time you scroll the wheel. Need a little? Choose 5. Need a lot? Choose 1000. If the line and the number are black, that site doesn't have line of sight. If they are both white, it does. If it is yellow, that means the site has line of sight. However, that point in space is beyond the max theoretical range of that site. A more expedient tool is the Check Line of Sight tool. First, click on a platform, then on a site. Click on the Check Line of Sight icon and then read the message window. There you can tell whether you have line of sight or not. Note that the Check Line of Sight tool works only between two entities, the source entity being a site and the destination entity being a platform. If you want to check line of sight between a site and an arbitrary point in space, you would use the Line of Sight tool, or you could draw a terrain and a radar mask for the site. Controls for drawing these masks are found on the Analysis tab and will be covered in another video.